Viewers, let's now talk about something simple but extremely serious. The US Vice President J.D. Vance has said that he hopes his wife Usha will one day leave her faith, her Hindu faith, and become a Christian like him. He said it out loud on stage with cameras rolling. Viewers, Usha Vance is a proud Hindu. She was raised with Hindu prayers, Hindu festivals, Hindu values. She has never asked JD to give up his Catholic faith. She even goes to the church with him sometimes. Their wedding had 2 ceremonies, one Hindu, one Christian. She raises their 3 kids in his religion. She respects his beliefs. So why can't JD Vance respect hers? Viewers, saying it in public is not just a personal wish. It is not. It is pressure. It's like telling her and every Hindu, your faith is nice, but look, mine is better, so change. Viewers, that's not love, that's not freedom, that is intimidation with a smile, pure and simple. Why must her Hinduism be a project to fix? Why should it be a stepping stone for his salvation narrative? In a marriage of equals, faith should be a bridge, not a battleground, viewers. Is this what America stands for? Their constitution says the government and its leaders cannot push one religion on anyone. I have a copy of the First Amendment here. Religious freedom means you believe what you choose. It means no one gets to vote on your soul. When a vice president thinks aloud about converting his Hindu wife, he does not just weaponize religion. He attacks the very foundation of pluralism, viewers, and that's the worry here. J.D. Vance's words, born of his belief, betray a blindness to the power he wields. They remind us that intolerance often wears the mask of hope. Viewers, now let's talk about the faith J.D. Vance wants to replace. Sanatan, Hinduism, is not some, club with membership cards. It's like a river, an ocean, if you will, ancient, unbroken. It does not recruit, it does not threaten anyone. It does not say believe or burn. It says look, listen, choose. That is Sanatan. What J.D. Vance has said is a reminder that people in power still believe they can rename God. Viewers, I want to take this one step further, because what J.D. Vance has said on that stage is not just a personal failing. It's the same poisonous script we hear from fundamentalists in Pakistan or Bangladesh. There too, a Hindu or Christian is never fully one of us, no matter how many generations their blood has soaked into the soil, no matter how loudly they pledge allegiance. They are forever the other, forever. They are tolerated only if they trade their faith and change their name. J.D. Vance's words, viewers, wrapped in velvet, carry the same message. This is total intolerance. Let me quickly open this up, viewers. We have an eminent panel. Pandit Satish K. Sharma is author, dharmic scholar, needs no introduction. Sushil Pandit ji, Ratan Sharda ji on the panel, and Dr. Anand Ranganathan completes this. Sushil Pandit, I want to begin by asking you, what do you make of what J.D. Vance was trying to say?
I mean, this is very clear. The man is angling for a fruitful political career, and he is pandering to a certain vote bank in US. Probably such things have been said before. In fact, there was a worthy called Naveen Jindal who converted twice. First conversion was probably in ignorance and wasn't as profitable. So he was born again thrice, to be in the right denomination so that he dials the right number. It's another matter that his career went nowhere. So I feel they have made a mockery of faith and religious freedom and some such concepts that they preach about and come very rich with, while telling others what to do and what not to do. But when it comes to their own conduct, it is hypocrisy all the way. I'm not surprised at all. But what surprises me is what happens within, here in India. We are told from the rooftops of such venerable organizations that have completed a century, from the very apex, that change of faith doesn't change the fact that you are a Hindu. Change of, the worship style or the people you worship, the gods that you worship, doesn't change the fact that you are a Hindu. In fact, one very senior cabinet minister was even more inventive, and he says there are Muhammad Panthi Hindus and there are Isa Panthi Hindus. If you are born in India, you are a Hindu, no matter which faith you belong to, no matter which faith you convert to. And that you don't change your ancestors when you change your style of worship or the gods that you worship. So, I think there is confusion all over, and there are people who like to be hypocrites patently, blatantly, in order to pursue their political interests. Tushtikaran becomes Triptikaran because politics has to be pursued, and we see it globally.
Right.
So it didn't surprise me when J.D. Vance, a conservative who's trying to be more Catholic than the Pope, goes about saying these things about his wife.
Right. This is intolerance of the worst kind, which is why I'm calling it the great American conversion project. Pandit Sharma, what do you make of this? Because you see, we've often heard many people invoking the religious freedom in the United States of America. That has gone to the pits. This is the vice president doing this.
Jai Shri Ram, everybody. Firstly, I'd just like to appreciate the young Hindu lady who had a very direct question and which has unveiled and revealed to us some of the deeper samskars of the Vice President of the United States of America. You see, it's the constitutional role which is the reason why we're having this conversation. And what he said is blatantly Christian supremacist, and that is entirely unconstitutional. It's an extraordinary statement for a vice president to have made. My bigger worry is that this is actually the tip of an iceberg. Christian nationalism has a dark history. In fact, most of the white settlers from the United Kingdom who settled in the 1550s, 1560s were fleeing the oppression of Christian nationalism. They were fleeing the Church of England. In 1559, the Church passed an act called the Religious Confirmation Act. It required you to behave according to Christianity. And only a short period of time later, we're now beginning to see Christian nationalism exerting unashamedly its bias and its supremacist attitudes. The personal dimension between Ushaji and her husband isn't really something that should have been displayed, and I'm not really wanting to go into that space, other than to say that there is a symptom where Hindus have rose-colored spectacles, and we look at everybody from a dharmic lens, thinking the person is more important than the ideology. But what has been revealed by Vice President Vance is that the ideology is possibly more important than the person, so much so that I think he disrespected his partner.
And to say that in public, imagine the amount of, pressure, intimidation, whatever you want to call it. Dr. Ranganathan, this is America adopting the Pakistan model. Look at what Pakistan does to religious minorities. And it comes from the US Vice President.
Pranesh, I'm afraid you're slightly mistaken out there, because Panditji is absolutely right. What Pakistan is doing now, America has done and dusted centuries ago. It is perhaps Pakistan that adopted the American model. And now, because they've used it so successfully, America is possibly borrowing it. But I think if one moves away from the usual signs or signatures, if I may say so, that come across with that astonishing admission of the Vice President, the fact is that he is an out-and-out hypocrite and opportunist. You've seen how the moment Trump elected him as a candidate, he tried to brush out or brush over all the anti-Trump things that he had said all his life, including the things that even Democrats were balked saying, but he was saying it unabashedly. Now he's distanced himself completely, and now he's become more Catholic than the Pope itself when it comes to Trump. The second thing I'd like to say is, you can talk for an hour, 2 hours a week, but just one quote of Rabindranath Tagore would possibly equate it. And here I have to quote him, quote, "There are but two religions on earth that are intent upon destroying every other religion. And those two religions are Christianity and Islam. And the only way to make peace with them is to embrace them." This is what Rabindranath Tagore, Gurudev, who was possibly not a Sanghi, said more than a century ago. The fact is, you are not going to rewrite what has already been written. You are not going to say what has already been said for centuries. Fact of the matter is, there are proselytizing religions. There are religions that want to destroy any other religion. It's a fact. Now, you can do it in a quote-unquote civilized way, like J.D. Vance is doing it. Of course, there might be coercion or whatever it may say, personal matter altogether. Or you can do it forcibly, like, happens in many Islamic nations. Bangladesh is now a prime example. Pakistan always has been. But you can't escape, and that's why I keep on repeating this. We end up making the mistake of making a villain out of J.D. Vance or some other mullah or Maulana, but the fact is, we would be snaring the fundamentalists but sparing the fundamentals. You only have to read the fundamentals of Christianity and Islam to realize that nothing is going off the pages of the book. Everything is according to plan.
Ratan Sharda ji, many people are, at least the social media chatter that, I've seen so far, they are asking one question, that imagine the outrage if it was J.D. Vance at the receiving end of this comment, and if this was, insinuated, suggested by Usha Vance.
Well, Pranesh, you know very well that Abrahamic religions have very straightforward approach, that you are either with us or you can stay away from us, or you are second-class citizens. Whereas Christianity or Islam, tell me how many cases you find where a Hindu marries a Muslim or a Christian doesn't convert. Usha is lucky that she has not converted for nearly 2 decades, as far as I know. But her son's already going to church, as Vance very clearly said. And we know the famous case of Devanand Suraiya, where Devanand lose out on the love life because Suraiya refused to become Hindu and he refused to become a Muslim. And there are scores of such cases. 99% of the people have to convert to Christianity or Islam if they want to marry their love. So that is already known. Now this is lust for power which has overridden the love. So Vance, realizing that he has a chance to become a president, he has gone to the extent of saying, "Oh, I am a very good Christian." From Protestants he becomes a Catholic, but America remains a evangelist Protestant country. And he had to bend down. Remember Vivek Ramaswamy? People said, "Wonderful person, but you are a Hindu, I will not vote for you." So he lost the race at that point itself. And this claim of secularism, this liberalism, is exposed very well. Why are we getting outraged? I don't know. And that is how America is. It remains white supremacist country. That is why they can't beat up Muslims when they create problem. They will beat up Hindus. So this approach of on one side, are frightened of naming the devil in the society. You will call Islamophobia, but then go and beat up any Hindu. And that is where, we have to understand what's going on in America. I think a Pandit named Jindal, we forget Nikki Haley, a Sardas lady who said, "I am more Christian than the Christians." So if you have to remain in America in politics, you have to convert. You have to show that you are more loyal than the...
No, you're right, but politics is only one aspect of it. Dr. Ranganathan wants to come in. I am just wondering, what will the implication of this remark will be, on general public, on the American people, because this will only fuel, divide, perpetuate suspicion, etc., whatever it is. Dr. Ranganathan.
Things. I think the perception of the American public, obviously having heard J.D. Vance, would be positive, because they want this. That is why it is all the more important for Miss Vance, Usha Vance, to get up and say, "Hey, you may like to practice whatever you want to practice, but the fact of the matter is, let me be." And I think Ratanji is absolutely right. The only exception perhaps being Tulsi Gabbard, who is now unabashedly a self-declared Hindu, although she was from Samoan and Christian ancestry. So it's a bit hodgepodge out there. But the fact of the matter is you have to be a evangelical Christian if you want to do well in politics. But let me add to what Ratanji said. Not only is the fact that most Hindus who marry out of their religion ultimately possibly have to convert to that very religion, but what is more disturbing is what J.D. Vance said about his children. Now, there he's not leaving any scope for them to decide on themselves or by themselves.
You're right.
He has said that his children are being brought up as Christians, and that is what we see even in Bollywood. You may have Hindus who've married Muslims and they've kept their individual religions, but the children are always belonging to the religion of the non-Hinduism. I mean, there are plenty of examples. I will not name them. Even in journalism, there are instances where, the Muslim who's married unabashedly says, my children are being brought up, like Muslims. So that is what forcing is. I mean, as an adult, Usha is free to make her choice. And I don't know whether she's made it. Good luck to her. But as children, you are forcing upon them one way of life, which is Christianity. And I think that is wrong. Let them decide.
Pandit Sharma, we all know about the global campaign of dismantling Hindutva, etc., etc. Now that these remarks have been made by the US Vice President, will, a campaign on the lines of dismantling Hindutva, will we see that? We won't, obviously.
Indeed, there will be an escalation, and it's inevitable and it's predictable. We have actually passed the classical stage of asking for 5 villages so we can carry on and conduct our lives in peace and quiet, and those being denied to us. It's about time we recognized it. It's a fundamental reality that cannibals and vegetarians cannot coexist unless the vegetarians somehow delude themselves that one day the cannibals will give up their principles and value systems. And so there is absolutely no chance. The battle lines have been drawn up. We have been under a continuous barrage for a long period of time, and it's going to increase. This is inevitable. We should become accustomed to it and decide what our response is going to be to this. I'd like to just use your channel to introduce a word, because people will then accuse you of being Christian phobia and Islamophobic and so on. And I was pondering on this when I was waiting to come on, and I'd like to introduce the word barbarian phobia. You see, barbarian phobia cannot exist because it's an entirely rational position to have a fear of barbarians. And I think Hindus need to recognize that what our fear is, that after 280 years of being dominated by one group of barbarians, following almost 1400 years of being assaulted and subjected to barbaric experiences by another group of barbarians, those barbarians have now acquired some degree of credibility, and those barbarians are very much targeting us, the last continuous indigenous dharmic civilization on the planet.
Well said, sir. That's the brutal truth. Sushil Panditji.
Yes, Pranesh. I was happy that Dr. Ranganathan mentioned Tulsi Gabbard. There are other Indians in American politics. There is Raja Krishnamurthy, who is a congressman from Chicago. And there are others who hold on to their faith steadfastly, don't do politicking around their faith. And Tulsi Gabbard, though she's a native American, she was perhaps the first one as a congresswoman who took oath on Bhagavad Gita. So it isn't like you can't get far in American politics without giving up your faith. These are the choices you make. And you make these choices in order to see what you are willing to give up in order to get ahead in politics, even if it gives you that kind of advantage or not. Be that as it may, while there are these faiths that are predatory, entire issue is how do we respond to them? Do we prevaricate about them? Do we give them cut them some slack? Do we give them concessions? Do we make exceptions of them, mollycoddle them, or call them out for what they are and call them out from the highest levels? Our organizations, our institutions, our responses. We need to do what America does to us in terms of, in the manner of religion, freedom of faith, and tell them, how can you do this? Shame them, name them. But I'm afraid no Indian institution, no Indian body, no Indian political party, certainly not from the government, would ever anyone object to such blatant and such gross misuse of
I was about
power
to come to that point. I thought I'll put that to Dr. Ranganathan in the end, but now that you've spoken about it, Dr. Ranganathan, people who usually, boast about taking positions, all of them are on test, and I expect the so-called prominent Sanatanis, Hindus, people who are in power, who can shape narrative, to speak up.
Well, here is the irony that people who are not afraid to speak on this issue are the ones that are erstwhile champions of virtue signaling. And right now, people who were speaking about this issue have become champions of virtue signaling. To give you an example, it was Mahatma Gandhi who said, who's obviously the champion of virtue signaling, who said, if I had power and if I had the power to legislate, the first law I would legislate would be to ban proselytization. I cannot understand how a man can change his faith, a man whose grandfather and parents were of different faith. This was Mahatma Gandhi. If Congress were to hear this quote, they would possibly start hating Mahatma Gandhi. But the fact of the matter is, the reality is on the wall. Unless our leaders of the current dispensation wake up and see what is happening, demographic changes that are happening, conversions, forced conversion, love jihad, all those things that are happening, I'm afraid, as Panditji said, the writing's on the wall.
Okay. Ratan Sharda ji, what should one do? First is to accept what is going on, then is to create awareness.
Well, Pranesh, why don't you question liberals who claim that all this is very fine? You can question BJP because BJP is in government, but it has to think twice before it speaks. What about the liberals who have been saying about freedom of religion and all that? You will not question them, who believe that everything is all right and there is no problem at all in convergence, etc. So they are all quiet today. And as far as I am concerned, both Islamic and Christian civilizations have risen on the shoulder of the religion and gone with imperial intent to colonize the entire world. And they have used religion. Have Hindus used the religion ever to conquer any world? No, they have gone. They have taken people along. But this idea that you will change people using religion and then justify the loot and the invasion in the name of religion is something totally against our own ethos. And that is what you have to understand. So we can question Vance, we can have this, question of this push on Lady Vance. I'm sure either it will end up in divorce or she will end up a Christian or Vance will lose. So that is their issue which they have to fight in the society. Are we that kind of society? We are not. Are we not exposing the convergence? Are we not exposing love jihad? We are. Are the laws not being put up against love jihad? They are being put up. Do you want to have a kind of law where, like China, we can pass martial laws and get everything done? We cannot. You saw farm laws, you saw CAA. So we are fighting against very strong forces who are entrenched in the state, in the deep state of India. I'm not talking of USA, who will oppose at every stage. And what Modi is doing is doing one step at a time and trying to put a wall against it. And to say nothing is happening, that all people are sleeping. We don't.
There is no doubt that this is the mindset of conquest, and we know historically how the conquest toolkit has or toolkits have ended. So if there is a lesson, it is just staring us in the face, and we must take note of it, or we will repeat the mistakes of the past. I thank all of you for this enlightening conversation. Pandit Sharma, Sushil Pandit, Dr. Ranganathan and Ratan Sharda ji for joining us on Times Now.